What would you do if someone shot you in front of 30,000 people? Would you call for justice, seek revenge, or would you do something so unexpected that it would transform not just your attacker, but everyone who witnessed it? Bob Marley faced exactly this situation in 1978, and his response while bleeding on stage would create the most powerful moment of forgiveness ever captured on film, proving that love really can triumph over even the deepest hatred. If you love discovering the untold stories behind music history's most incredible moments, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell because we uncover the hidden gems that shape the legends we know today. June 23, 1978, National Stadium, Kingston, Jamaica. The political tension in Jamaica was at its peak, with violent clashes between supporters of the People's National Party and the Jamaica Labour Party tearing the country apart. Gang warfare had claimed hundreds of lives, and music concerts had become rare as artists feared being associated with either political faction. But Bob Marley had insisted on performing this concert, calling it One Love Peace Concert, an attempt to bring the warring political leaders together and heal the divided nation. Despite death threats from both sides, Bob refused to cancel, believing that music could bridge even the deepest political divisions. 30,000 people packed the stadium, but the atmosphere was tense. Armed security surrounded the stage, and political leaders from both parties sat in heavily guarded sections, eyeing each other with suspicion and hatred. In the crowd, a 24-year-old man named Vincent Morrison stood near the front, his hands trembling with rage and grief. Vincent was a gunman for one of Kingston's most violent political gangs, but his presence at the concert wasn't about politics. It was about revenge. 3 weeks earlier, Vincent's 16-year-old brother Michael had been killed in a gang shooting. Michael wasn't a gangster. He was a student, a Bob Marley fan who had been walking home from school when he was caught in crossfire between rival gangs. As Michael lay dying in Vincent's arms, he had whispered, "Play Bob Marley. Play Three Little Birds. Everything gonna be all right." But Vincent didn't believe anything would be all right. In his grief and rage, he had convinced himself that Bob Marley was partly responsible for Michael's death. Bob's songs about unity and peace, Vincent believed, made young people like Michael too trusting, too naive about the violent realities of Kingston streets. If my brother hadn't believed in all that one love nonsense, Vincent had told himself repeatedly, he would have been more careful. He would have run when he heard the gunshots. Bob Marley's music made him weak, made him believe in peace that doesn't exist. Vincent had come to the concert with a .38 caliber pistol hidden under his jacket, planning to kill Bob Marley in front of thousands of people as a statement against what he saw as false hope and dangerous idealism. Bob took the stage at 8:30 p.m., wearing a simple white shirt and dark pants, his dreadlocks crowned with a colorful tam. The crowd erupted in celebration, but Bob could sense the underlying tension. He opened with Trenchtown Rock, trying to unite the crowd through music, then moved into Get Up, Stand Up, encouraging people to fight for their rights peacefully. Vincent watched from the crowd, his hand gripping the gun, waiting for the right moment. He wanted maximum impact. He wanted to shoot Bob while he was singing about peace and love, to show the world how naive and useless those messages were in the face of real violence. Bob began performing War, his adaptation of Haile Selassie's speech to the United Nations about ending racial discrimination and conflict. The song was particularly relevant to Jamaica's political situation, and Bob sang it with passionate intensity. Until the philosophy which holds one race superior and another inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned, everywhere is war. As Bob sang about ending war and hatred, Vincent felt his rage reaching its peak. Here was this man preaching about peace, while Vincent's innocent brother lay dead because of the violence that Bob's naive message couldn't prevent. Vincent pushed through the crowd toward the stage, his hand on the gun. Security noticed his aggressive movement and started moving toward him, but they were too late. Until there are no longer first-class and second-class citizens of any nation, until the color of a man's skin is of no more significance than the color of his eyes, me say war. Vincent pulled out the gun and fired. The shot rang out clearly over Bob's voice and the music. Bob jerked backward as the bullet struck his left shoulder, blood immediately staining his white shirt. The music stopped abruptly as the band members realized what had happened. 30,000 people erupted in chaos, screaming, running, panic spreading through the stadium like wildfire. Security rushed the stage while others tackled Vincent to the ground. The crowd nearest to Vincent began beating him, ready to tear him apart for shooting their beloved Bob Marley. But Bob, despite the burning pain in his shoulder and blood running down his arm, did something that stopped everyone in their tracks. "Stop!" Bob shouted into the microphone, his voice carrying clearly over the chaos. "Nobody hurt him. Bring him to me." The crowd froze. Security hesitated. Even Vincent, who had been bracing for a beating or worse, looked up in confusion. Bob was standing on stage, blood seeping through his shirt, but his voice was calm and strong. "Bring the man who shot me up here," Bob said clearly. "I want to talk to him." Security looked at each other uncertainly. The crowd was calling for Vincent's blood, wanting immediate justice for the attack on Bob, but Bob's instruction was clear. "Do it," Bob said firmly. "Bring him up here now." Two security guards lifted Vincent to his feet and escorted him onto the stage. Vincent was bleeding from where the crowd had hit him, his clothes torn, his face a mixture of defiance and confusion. He had expected to be killed immediately after shooting Bob, but instead, he was standing face to face with his victim. Bob looked at Vincent directly, his eyes showing pain from the gunshot but no hatred. The stadium was completely silent except for the sound of thousands of people breathing heavily, waiting to see what would happen next. "What's your name, brother?" Bob asked Vincent, his voice gentle despite his obvious pain. "Vincent Morrison," Vincent replied, surprised by his own honesty. "Vincent, why did you shoot me?" Bob asked, and there was genuine curiosity in his voice, not anger. Vincent had prepared a political speech, something about Bob being a tool of the system or promoting false consciousness. But facing Bob's kind eyes and gentle question, the real truth came out. "You killed my brother," Vincent said, his voice breaking. The crowd murmured in confusion. Bob had never killed anyone. "Tell me about your brother," Bob said softly. Vincent's composure cracked completely. "His name was Michael. He was 16. He loved your music. He believed in all your peace and love stuff. And that's why he's dead." Bob waited patiently as Vincent struggled to continue. 3 weeks ago, Michael was walking home from school singing 3 Little Birds. When the shooting started between the gangs, instead of running, he tried to help an old lady who fell down. He believed people were good. He believed in your message, and they shot him for it. Vincent was crying now, his grief pouring out in front of 30,000 people. If he hadn't believed in your songs, if he'd known the world was evil, he would have run. He would have saved himself. Your music made him think people could be good, and it got him killed. Bob was quiet for a long moment, absorbing Vincent's pain. The blood from his shoulder wound was soaking his shirt, but he seemed oblivious to his own injury. "Vincent," Bob said finally, "your brother didn't die because he believed in love. Your brother died because not enough people believe in love. Michael was trying to live in the world I sing about, and he died because the world hasn't caught up to people like him yet." Vincent looked confused, unsure how to respond. Bob continued, his voice gaining strength despite his physical weakness. "You shot me because you think my message is false, that love and peace are lies. But look around you right now." Bob gestured to the crowd, which was listening in complete silence to this unprecedented conversation. 30,000 people are watching a man who just shot me, and not one of them is trying to hurt you. They're listening. They're feeling your pain. That's what love looks like. Not the absence of violence, but the choice to respond to violence with understanding. Vincent was staring at Bob in disbelief. "Your brother Michael," Bob said. "He was living my message perfectly. He chose to help someone instead of running to safety. That choice might have cost him his life, but it also made him a hero. He died doing what I sing about, putting love before fear." Bob turned to address the entire stadium. "This young man shot me because grief and anger convinced him that love is weakness, that my message of unity is dangerous. But I want everyone here to see what happens when we choose love over revenge." Bob turned back to Vincent. "Vincent, I forgive you. Not because what you did was right, but because holding hatred against you won't bring your brother back, and it won't heal the pain in your heart." The crowd was completely silent, witnessing something unprecedented in human experience. "More than that," Bob continued, "I want to ask you something. Will you help me finish what your brother started? Will you help me spread the message that Michael died trying to live?" Vincent was sobbing openly now, all his anger transformed into grief and confusion. "I don't understand. I shot you. You should hate me." "Hatred is what killed your brother," Bob replied. "More hatred won't honor his memory. But if we can show people that even after violence, love is still possible, then maybe we can prevent other Michaels from dying." Bob picked up his guitar, wincing from the pain in his shoulder. "Vincent, do you know the words to 'Three Little Birds'?" Vincent nodded through his tears. "Then sing it with me. Sing the song your brother loved. Help me show these people what he believed in." What happened next would be talked about for decades. Bob Marley, bleeding from a gunshot wound, and Vincent Morrison, the man who shot him, stood together on stage and sang, "Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be all right." Vincent's voice was broken and off-key, interrupted by sobs, but he sang every word. The crowd gradually joined in, 30,000 voices singing together about hope and healing, while witnessing the most powerful demonstration of forgiveness in modern history. When the song ended, Vincent collapsed to his knees and embraced Bob's legs, sobbing uncontrollably. Bob, despite his wound and weakness, placed his hand on Vincent's head in a gesture of blessing and forgiveness. The crowd erupted not in violence or calls for justice, but in tears and applause. They had witnessed something that challenged everything they thought they knew about human nature, about justice, about the possibility of love triumphing over hatred. Bob was rushed to the hospital immediately after the concert, where doctors treated his gunshot wound. The bullet had missed major arteries and organs, and Bob would recover fully. But the impact of what had happened on stage would last forever. Vincent Morrison was arrested, but not charged with attempted murder. Bob refused to press charges, instead asking that Vincent be released into his custody. Vincent became Bob's personal assistant and eventually one of his most trusted bodyguards, dedicating his life to protecting the man he had tried to kill. The footage of Bob forgiving Vincent on stage became one of the most watched videos in history, broadcast on television stations around the world and studied in peace and conflict resolution programs. The image of the two men singing together, the victim and his attacker, became a symbol of the possibility for reconciliation, even in the most impossible circumstances. Vincent Morrison never forgot the lesson Bob taught him that night. He spent the rest of his life working with youth in Kingston's violent neighborhoods, using his own story to show young people that hatred only creates more hatred. But love has the power to break cycles of violence. Bob didn't just forgive me, Vincent said in a 2019 interview, marking the 41st anniversary of the shooting. He showed me that my brother's death could have meaning if I chose to live the way Michael had lived, with love